Basically, I've been really busy running courses, teaching stuff from the Stone Age period. If you haven't ever watched anything that I do, my name's Will Lord, and I've spent my life practicing prehistoric skills. So, in this little live, what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of flint here from this locality, which is in East Anglia in the UK, and the flint can be pretty good around here, but it can also have problems that were caused by the Ice Age. This particular piece looks pretty good, and so I'm going to set about it and see what can happen. I see somebody's joined me, so just say hi. How you doing? Hope you're having a nice day. It's a particularly beautiful autumn day down here at the moment, and I reckon it's set to stay for the next few days, which is good, because this evening I've got 10 people arriving. They're going to be spending 4 days with me on a prehistoric experience, and they're going to be doing a variety of stuff. They're going to be doing flint napping, making outlaw spears. They're going to be making nets. They're going to be doing weaving and making traps to put into the river. They're going to be chopping down a tree with a flint axe. So, not this particular one. It's one that is already polished and in a handle. But that's quite an experience, to take a flint axe and chop down a tree. So what we're going to do, you're very welcome to comment and ask questions as we go, and if I look up in time and the question hasn't gone by, I'll be quite happy to answer. So yeah, several months since I posted, so I've got a quartzite rock here, and I'm going to start to try and release the weight from just here, and we'll find out very, very quickly. Hi, my Nicole and Princess Blessings from Australia. Should have been watching last night, Princess Blessings. The reason being, that is a nice bit of stone. So that's a useful piece of information. Last night I was doing a live on one of my other social media channels. I can keep all these, look. We've got Triztov, also an Aussie. So last night I was actually napping a piece of flint from Australia, and it had gone to Australia from the UK as ballast in hello Gabriel, as ballast in the bottom of a ship, and somebody had been kind enough to pick it up and send it to me. So it went from England to Australia, and then it came back, and last night I napped it, but it wasn't any good. So it fell into lots of bits and pieces. So it went right the way around the world just for me to wreck it. Yeah, so these pieces that are coming off, look, that's extraordinary. Really good flint. Hello, Christy. I don't know what the hour is for you, but it's just gone 9:30 over here in the morning. So far so good. What we've done is we've taken all of that lot off of there and thinned that back. And what that's told me so far is there are no cracks in this particular piece of flint yet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this flint over and start trying to send stuff down the other way. Friday, where? Oh yeah, so yeah, being on the other side of the world, you're going to be on the other side of the clock. And what we have just discovered right in here, look, is there's a sea urchin stuck in it. So that's nice to see, but it's a little bit unhelpful. And then a couple of last flakes stopped abruptly there, so I'm going to come back from this side just to find out if there's a crack inside this stone. Thing is with flint napping is it really doesn't matter what happens when you're dealing with a rock which is millions of years old. It's had quite a journey before you meet it and start whacking away at it. There's Trevor. Hello, Trevor. Hard hammer only at this stage. What I've got next to me is the napping sack that I've just recently made. Quickly show you that. Yeah, so this is a buckskin bag that I've recently made, and in here what I do is I keep my punches, and that's quite funny, J.A. I use them for working on blade cores and things like that. And then inside I've got more buckskin, which is ready for doing more work. And then what we have is we've got a good old soft hammer, and that's going to help me as I get a bit further into the project. Anyway, there's a nice little cluster of you coming into this live, so welcome in, and just nice to see you. So back to the stone for a second. I'm just going to change down a gear with the hard hammer. What I mean by that is it's slightly smaller. And because this piece of flint is quite square and cubular, the challenges is to get rid of all of that. Could even do with a rock which is slightly more narrow here, because some of the shapes are quite bucketed out. Yeah, so the problem is when I'm running all the courses, what it does is it means that I don't have time to go on adventures and make movies about ancient places, which I miss. And I'm trying to construct some time in my life, which is away from courses and bits and pieces, so that I can get out on some new adventures. So at the moment I'm just going backwards and forwards. Eventually what I want to do is I want to stop. Oh right, well we'll come back to that in a second, Trevor. I want to stop going from left to right. I want to go up and down. I want to start trafficking flakes across the sides. But at the moment, because of the shapes that I've been presented with, it's just easier to go this way. And so in answer to your question, Trevor, yes, you can make tools without using a soft hammer at all. And in fact, when they were making hand axes in the lower Paleolithic, they quite commonly only used one hammerstone. And you can tell that. And the reason you can tell it is because every flake that comes off will have quite a large platform at the beginning, of quite pronounced bulbar percussion, and the flake scars on the surface. Yeah, you should, Christy. That'd be great. You know that I've got a website and you can have a look and see if there's anything that appeals to you on there. If you don't, it's the 3 W's, www.will-lord.co.uk. So I really like the tools that I really like the tools that you see that were only made of the hammerstone, because of the panelled flaking that you get. Once you start using a soft hammer, the flakes sort of merge into one a little bit. Yeah, having enough time to do everything. I thought I'd got a handle on that, but actually life has other persuasions sometimes, and you just have to do what you got to do, you know. So too old for adventures, doctor's orders, but watching is still fun. Oh, princess, yeah. Well, I've still got some adventures left in me, but to be quite honest with you, one of the adventures that that I have had this year started out at the beginning of the year when I decided I was going to build the kitchen, which is behind me, and a cabin in the forest. So I've got like a little cabin in the woods, and also bringing dogs into my life, and going down that journey. Look at these. I mean, that's the tool. You know, it's one of them flakes where if you wanted a knife, that's your knife. Quite often what they would do with things like this is they would just take this and they'd make one side of it safe like this, just rolling along the edge to blunt it. You just go all the way along that, like that. And now that's what's described as backed, so your finger can sit on that and you've got a really, really nice knife. So pop that to one side, because that's probably going to get used over the next couple of days. Now, coming back to this rock, look what we've got here. I'll answer that in a moment, Jesse. So this area here is an infusion, and this little fella here, we got to try and deal with that and come underneath that lot. So Jesse, right, I grew up on a Neolithic flint mine, and the people that were mining there would dig in the flint using antler tools, and funnily enough, almost this material only come from a couple of miles away. They had to dig down as deep as 50 foot through chalk to get the actual material out. And then the material layer after. I don't have any cats, Mikkel, no. Look, we've got a bit of that sea urchin now, and there's Flint behind it, so he's actually not a problem. Morning, Polly, and steadily. So that sea urchin isn't too much of a problem to me. But yeah, so if you've made the effort to get 50 foot down into the bowels of the earth, only to mine amazing flint without the use of modern machinery, that flint's going to have quite a large value, wouldn't you say? Oh, sounds lovely, princess. Right, so things are starting to move forward a little bit here. Let's just have a quick look at that. Remember a couple of minutes ago, this was really quite square, but now we're starting to get just a little bit more organisation and shape. So when you start looking at this, this is English flint, mate. We could start thinking about areas like this, and what we need to do is we need to shift this edge up the stone a little bit, and then we can cast across that surface. Lone Wolf, my accent is from the southeast of England, and it's quite funny because my parents actually come from a place nearer to London and Hertfordshire, and I'm quite glad that I didn't pick up a London accent, because that's all a bit different. It's got knees up, Mother Brown, all that sort of slight slang tone to the voice. Right, so it's going to be time to start moving into soft hammer territory, because what I just did was Jesse, well, if you found Flint in Pembrokeshire, it's probably because somebody took it there. It doesn't naturally occur over there, does it? I'm just going to work on this area, and I'll come back to that black dot, and we'll try and start using a soft hammer to cast longer, thinner flakes. So, how did they know that there was flint there? Well, nearby to Grimes Graves, which is now it's in Thetford Forest, it's on an old chalk landscape. In fact, it's in an area called Breckland, which Breckland means broken land. And the reason it's called broken land is because you haven't got to go far down. You go down through sandy, clayey soil, and then what you hear is you hit chalk. So when people have been farming and put in forests on that landscape, what happens is the landscape itself can't sustain a lot of modern activity of agricultural activity, so it breaks down quite quick. So the land then got called Breckland. Oi. So these flakes are different now. I'll just talk about that. So how that transmits back to what Black Dot Killer just asked is how did they know that there was flint there, is because they were regulars to the nearby river. And what the river kind of erodes the base of cheers mate. The river erodes the base of the river, and what that does in turn is that exposes flint. And so just from the river itself, that they knew that the quality of the flint around the area was high. And so they started doing little holes here and there. That sounds good, Stuart. Grimes Graves is great, mate. It's literally my childhood at home. Things like that we can use and make arrowheads. And okay, Christy, have a great day. See you later. And so they started putting test pits into places. You know, they'd dig, and if they didn't find much flint, they'd move further on. And they carried on moving around. And eventually they got to the area we now know as Grimes Graves, and they realised that, cheers Steadley, have a great day. They realised that the flint was really good there, although quite deep to get at. And so they dug one hole next to the other, and all of a sudden you've got what you'd call a flint mine, in a complex in a flint mine. Rugen Shaw for flint. Perhaps you could email me the GPS on that. I'll meet you out there and we'll nap some flint. Polyot. I have actually got a flint axe that, you're welcome. Germany. Yeah, I've heard about the German flint. I've never ever napped any. I have actually got a flint axe in there that we're going to be using this weekend to chop a tree down, and it's actually chopped down 12 trees, and there's not a single mark on it because it's polished. Any dolerite bluestone blades been found used by the ancients? Don't know the answer to that, Jesse. Not that I've ever heard of. I think the problem with that is it's what we describe as a bit soapy, and therefore it doesn't conchoidally fracture. So the reason flint works so well is because you get something called a conchoidal fracture, which is basically it's called a conchoidal fracture because what you get is you get a radial shape at the point of impact, like this bit here. Look. Oh, thank you very much. Polyelit, I think that's how you say your name. Probably got it wrong. And as you can see, as we keep going, you can't start hitting the flint soft because you're getting closer to the goal. Gabriel, I'm going to shut up because I'm at something, probably is at work. Little jump start flake there. I call it a jump start when I lose a little bit out of the front. Right, let's crack on. Trying to keep up with the comments, but also got a job to do here. Right. So all these flakes, what they're doing now, I mean, these are brilliant flakes, right? But basically what they are doing is they're balancing the surfaces so that the edge becomes this. The edge of this tool has got to get over to here yet, which will be the centre of the stone. But sometimes the centre moves about because you take pieces off of the top of the flint. Technically, it moves the centre across. That can be a little bit difficult to describe without sitting down in a workshop capacity. And so what I'm doing is I'm using this stone now as an abrader. I'm going to try and send this flake down here, down this line, and get this little fella off. That's quite a tall order, but we'll give it a go anyway. It's a tall order, but it worked out all right. Look. Nice blade. We'll put that there as well. So now we've kind of got the axe, but what we don't have, don't get yourself fired, Gabriel. What we don't have is we don't have any order to the edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get things looking good all around the perimeter. And make it look a little bit more like it's got symmetry, you know? Needs some symmetry. You have to watch your thumb, mate. You don't want to be sticking your thumb out where you're striking. That's always the biggest concern when we're teaching flint napping. Christoph, yeah, my dad is good. I've just spoken to him, and he's invited me to go with him to a university in Cambridge on the 11th of November, teaching some archaeologists various techniques. He's 84. Cheers, mate. Yeah, it's good to get my dad on video. I'll probably do that again. Get him to get his flute out or his guitar. So, one of the reasons I decided I'd flick a live on is because I've got a small gap in time, and rather than sitting there making a video, I thought I'd let you guys know that I'm still alive, because it's been a few months since I posted anything. And look at that, there's quite a few of you found the time to tune in. Hopefully you're subscribers, and thank you, John. Agate, John. Yeah, hopefully you're subscribers, and hopefully I'll find time to do some more films. And just a little plug for my own channel is that it would be helpful to me if you became members to my channel, where you can become a member for a couple of quid, and that puts something in my bank and actually frees up more time for me. So if you wanted to be a member and mean something to me in that way, that would be awesome. And there'll be a button somewhere on my account where you can just become a member. You get a little icon above your head or something like that, so I can see the members when they come online. Anyway, I didn't really come on here to sell you anything, but you can become members if you want. Because in life, every little bit you can get kind of helps, right? So slowly what we're doing now, this is where things, there's still problems. When you're napping, it isn't in the bag until you have finished. The reason being is because some of the stuff that I could go on to do now could go horrendously wrong, like that. Yep, no, they can. I mean, we knocked one off earlier, and that's a knife. And what I did is I backed it like that. Yeah, things can go wrong at this stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this now, right? And I've got an antler in here, which is kind of a favourite. And Donny Dust's, Christoph, excellent, mate. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the membership. So this one, some of you probably know Donny Dust out in America. We're friends, and recently I wanted some moose, and the reason I wanted a piece of antler, a moose punch, that in fact, and he was kind enough to send that to me, and I wanted this stable punch because I'm practicing the blade core techniques, which is done with a punch. In fact, if you hang about, I can show you one in use. Do I like Danish flint? John, I absolutely love Danish flint. Some of it still has similar problems to what we find in England. There's a whole bunch of places that I went to when I was in Denmark. I went to the Falster Islands because I wanted some stuff which had like kind of white banding through it, which is really, really, really nice. It looks good. Then I went to Mons Klint and Stevens Klint, which is in Zealand, and there's more flint there. See, in Falster you can't find much on the coast, but what you find has been glacially redeposited across the land, and farmers heap it up on the fields. So you have to go and find the heaps. and hopefully not annoy the farmers too much. Aaron, Flint in East Yorkshire. So not a lot of it, and what's there is really small. But East Yorkshire is super famous in. Oh, thank you, Princess. That's really cool. That's really nice to have you on board as a member as well. Cheers. So, East Yorkshire, you've got a place called Starcar. And so from an archaeological point of view, Starcar is one of the most important sites in the UK, because it's one of the few places that there's evidence of Mesolithic settlements. The reason they liked Starcar is because they had a lake which was only 3 miles from the sea. So what you had is you had the opportunity to hunt from both different places. Not really sure what you're saying there, John. What's your favourite type of flint? Oh, fossil in Flint is very common. Yeah, fossils crop up in Flint. Sometimes you can use them decoratively. There is a hand axe that does the rounds, and you get to see it on social media. And it's about 450,000 years old, and right about here there's a shell presented, which is a beautiful thing, and to see that somebody once upon a time saw that and kind of decided they didn't want to take it away because they liked the decorative essence of it. I also went right high up into Jutland. Right, we're crushing over there, so we need to be careful. And there's chalk quarries. The further you get north in Denmark, you can start bumping into chalk quarries, and you get quite thinnish little slabs of chalky coloured flint, really black inside. We got a nasty little hinge just here, right? The funny thing is, right, hinges are things that we don't want, and in your early years of flintnapping, when you're practicing, they can be a huge struggle to deal with. As you get further forward in your flintnapping, you learn how to deal with them, because in some respects that seems a bit impossible to sort out. It's kind of not. I'm going to deal with it in a minute. See, we've still got evidence of a stone just in the middle there. And you can see that we're really whacking away at this. Quite often when somebody's watching, particularly if you're making a dagger, they start wincing as things get really thin, because they think you're going to break it anytime soon. And there's a good chance you will. But if you don't hit it, you ain't going to make what you think you're going to make anyway. What do I think the stone hinge was? Well, I assume you're asking how come it ended up there. Basically, because my platform was inferior. Because at the end of the day, when you're seeing me do this, which is what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing is I'm putting a shape and some structure into the edge, and then we're giving the edge a good strike, you know. And 9 times out of 10, what you intend to happen, if you're doing everything right, will work out successfully. But in all honesty, we're flintnapping, which means that we're striking the edge of the stone, and that in turn means that you're playing with chaos. So once you accept it, you know, guess what, you're playing with chaos. With that, you know that things are going to go wrong. And if you think about the amount of times this is it, things can go wrong commonly. There is the odd occasion when you're flintnapping, right? Yes, I can explain what a hinge is. A hinge is sitting right there. So basically the energy went in, it bumped into this lump, and instead of taking the lump off, it collapsed at that point. And so what the problem is now, is anything else that you send from the edge, it can only gather up there and can make that whole situation look worse. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that like that, and I'm going to build a platform here, and I'm going to sneak across the top of that hinge from beside it, if you get what I'm saying. So, and there's other ways to deal with it too. So another way of dealing with that hinge, which sits here, is I could come in a bit further here on this side, and I could hit the flint a bit deeper in. And so that means that I'd have a larger amount of flint underneath the hinge, and hopefully get it off that way. So if you look at that flake that I just took, I'll just try and put that back on. If you see that one, that's taken a large proportion of that hinge out. And the other thing I could do about this hinge, which would be a little bit sneaky, is I could get a punch like this. Now I know that's copper, right? But it was typical that once copper came into the world of flint, that they started using it. So we can actually make this little punch. We can sit on there, and if you look at that, that's taken another bit of it away. So this is much less threatening now. And see, the thing is, John, once you get into flintnapping, you'll actually start finding yourself being prepared to travel right around the world for the material. My recent trip was to France, to a place called the Grand Piscine, where I went there to practice something called lever de beurre, which is to make giant long straight blades. And I haven't finished it yet, but just behind me, down here, there's a piece of wood, and what I'm doing is I'm chiseling these channels out, where I'm going to be putting a big, well presented blade core into it. And then with a long lever and a punch, what you do is you pull the blades off. And I'm just procrastinating on it a bit, because it's really it's one of the most difficult things to set up in a piece of flint. Hello, Dylan. Blimey, you are close. You can probably hear me napping. And maybe that plane that's flying right over. If you're prepared to watch me on YouTube, Dylan, surely you're going to get yourself on a course. Come down here, mate. Teach you some old tricks. You could dig a hole in your garden, Dylan, and you can have some flint out of there. What you want to do there, Jesse, send me an email. Hey Tristan, how are you? Send me an email with your thoughts on that one, Jesse. Like I said, I struggle with time itself, so I'm not sure. I just need a little bit more context in that. So what's happening now is we're moving into the final stages of this. It's not going too bad. I don't need platforms like I did need platforms anymore, because we've slightly changed the angle. And I think flint is found all over the world, to be honest with you, John. Poland, Germany, wherever there's evidence of mankind. I've got a friend who was out in Saudi Arabia, and he picked up over 100,000 artifacts in the desert in a place called the Empty Quarters, which would dried out lake basins, obviously. But out there, that was called the Fertile Crescent, the cradle of mankind, where it all kicked off from. Well, no, not where it all kicked off from, but where probably the Neolithic period began there earlier than anywhere else, because the landscape was just perfect for settling down. I don't think the best flint in the world comes from Grimes Graves. I think the Grimes Graves flint was very good, but just like anywhere, there's going to be a huge percentage of what you find that you wouldn't want at all. And that's the same with Grimes Graves. There's plenty of evidence for that, because when you go down into the bottom of the pits, there was flint that they just didn't bother taking. Was that on Steven's Clint? Was it, Tristan? Steven's Clint is a really good place to go. And a good place to have lunch there as well. Awesome little calf. And it's hard work, because you have to walk for the flint along the shoreline. There's a small cliff and through a forest. And once you've filled your backpack up, which doesn't take long, and hey, hello Mark Guitar. Yeah, once you've filled your backpack up, then you've got to carry that back, and it doesn't get any lighter, you know. As you can see, we're close. You can see that nodule goes right, this little stone goes right the way through that. But this side is looking all right. This side, still got a little bit of work to do on it, just to bring it across a bit. And you quite often see, as I get closer towards the end of the project, that I bring the flint off of the leg into the hands. Basically, I find that the control raises a bit. And it's true to say that there's been some crushing going along here. Some of this has gone better than others. Just trying to get that final bit of organisation into it. You can imagine, right, that I've sat here for not that long, maybe half hour, maybe a little over half hour, and we've taken a piece of flint. See, that just, this sort of thing, it doesn't really allow you to pass flakes through it. And some of them, because they're thin, they're stumbling into it. Yeah, so in the grand scheme of things, not all that long has it taken to take a random rock and punch out the shape of an axe. But they'd have never used an axe like this. It's got to be polished, because if it's not polished, when you'll start using it, you'll just degenerate the front face into a blunt club, and it'll be completely useless. And it's the polishing that soaks up all the time. I'll answer that question, Dylan, and thank you. So the polishing, commonly people describe it as something that takes, so this is all gathering up and causing a load more problems now. The polishing can take up to 100 hours. As I say, you can see me running into a few problems here. And that might mean that this becomes quite small. It's one of them, isn't it? Dartmoor Survival, yeah, that was cool. I've just received an invitation from Naked and Afraid to apply to go on their show. And I've been asking myself whether I'd want to do that. Part of me is like, yeah, sod it, why not? How do you polish it? Basically what you do is you get a large stone like this, and you begin to put, much larger than this, we're talking huge, and you put sand on it and you start pushing this axe backwards and forwards on it. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to rub it completely smooth. And then once it's smooth, it will work so much better. Right. Situation. That situation at the edge. So that would be something now. My best bet is just to leave that alone and let that get polished out. And all the polishing done. So what we'll quickly do is I'll show you two things quickly. So you just stay there. I'm gonna grab that. That's a big moose, a big billet. And I'm gonna grab the last blade core that I was working on. You can see what we'll do there is the tools are what you take off rather than what you end up with. So, and this is placed here like this. And a little bit of work required at the top. I'm just going to do a little bit. Just doing a bit of prep at the top, and then what we're going to do is going to see if I can send that blade from here to here. It might work. How long have I been doing it? Pretty much all my life. So, you know, 5 years old, I'm now 55. Still no good at it. Wait. So that came off. I've got 2 segments. I snapped it in half. When you look there. But you'll get ones that do that. But then all you do with this is you corridor around, and then we have time to bleed. You're always going to bleed in this craft. Just hopefully not too much. Trying to get around that corner was a bit tricky. Do this one quick. So when we put that back, you can see the value in a blade core. I mean, that's dead straight. It's super sharp, and I mean, that's fine, isn't it? Pop that down. And so just quickly, what we'll do here is we'll pick you up, turn you around. That's Josh over there. He's been working quietly. What are you up to, Josh? Josh helps me with my Flintnapping workshops. It's coming along nice.
Just putting the notches in.
Yeah. And these are some of the things that he's been making over the last few days. He's quite chuffed with this one. And that's a nice bit of work, right? Yeah, the old earth lodge. So I lived in here for 4 years. This is the thing that I've just made. I made that a couple of days ago. I was going down this sort of stiletto route with that. These are all old tools here. So he's asking me about what you polish it on. This is a polish swell with a polished axe on it. It's a Danish axe there, look, square section. And over here, what we have is some polished axes themselves. I'll chop a tree down. And yeah. Kind of goes on, doesn't it? Look over here, we've got a little play button from YouTube. I painted all these walls based on art in caves from around the world. The skulls are quite interesting because these are reproductions of all the skulls that have ever been found, which is really cool. And down here, these are sticks that we're going to be turning into spears and arrows over the next few days. And down here is some of the Danish flint that I collected. Oh, and that's a piece of Zealand flint right there. And this particular piece of flint is from the Grand Piscine in France, where I was trying to make the long straight blades. Well, I lived over there. You see where that table is that I now use for selling a few artefacts. And I did have a bed there, but the problem was when people were coming in, they felt like they were coming into my bedroom. And so I'll show you what I did about it. At the beginning of the year, I decided I needed a kitchen. So I built a kitchen. Because that's a lot easier than this old kitchen. That was my kitchen and toilet. That's now decommissioned. I've got a new toilet up top. And out the back here in the forest, that's where I used to let people camp. So you just had a bit of a forest camping experience. But then a tree fell on it and it took one side out of it. So now I just use it as a timber store. But even that's got old paintings and stuff in it. And then over here, see, I thought I'd do something for myself. Bows and arrows there. Target back there, look. So I built this. Gave myself a little bit of comfort. I'll get all my electric out of the sky. And so there's Venus Willendorf, look. There's a dagger that my dad made. A painting my dad done. And funnily enough, see this just here? This is a prehistoric horse's jaw. Right, you see the teeth are wobbling because there's no gums in there. And then see this is a bit of antler. And it's got some teeth marks in it. That's really old. So what I did with that is I turned that into a dagger. And then that became a really nice cradle for it, don't you think? And then basically what I've got is I've got all my books. Nearly all the books in here are either teaching you about things you can forage, or there's some really cool books all about subjects, you know, that I teach. Over here, this is quite a cool thing to see. These are all from Saudi Arabia. Great big showcase of arrowheads and scrapers and all sorts of stuff. And there's the backyard. And if I go that way, I've got 30 acres of wilderness with a river, so we can teach people how to hunt from the river and get them into the wild a bit. So, with that all being said, firstly, I'd like to say welcome to my new members, people who decided to join my channel and become a member, which helps me do all this, because I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I'd have to work really hard to keep all this going. So becoming members of my channel, I can't tell you how much help that is. So if any of you are inspired to become a contributor to my account and become a channel member, that would be really hugely appreciated. But for now, I'm gonna slip off and say cheerio. Hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully I'll get some time to make some more content real soon. Cheers, guys.